Hi, Bobby Farrell from Goddess Inc. I'm here to tell you about a trip I just went on last weekend and the synchronicity of it all. I'll give you a little background. I have some anxieties about leaving my family. I do have somewhat of a codependency to my children and my husband, and my home and my safe places. So I had signed up to go to a medicine festival back in February with three girlfriends. And over the course of the months, they all slowly dropped out. Not quick enough together that I panicked, just slowly along the way until suddenly I was the only one going. And I still said, okay, I'm going to do this. It's my time. I have to let things go so I can grow. And that's literally what I said to myself. So fast forward until the day of the festival. I knew one person who was going for sure because he had bought the ticket of one of the ladies I was going with, and a girlfriend was going to meet me from Calgary. Um, so Friday morning, I get up and most things are packed and I'm ready to go pretty much. I'm having a shower and I'm crying in the shower because that's how I process big emotions. And then I'm crying outside of the shower. And all the while I'm saying, this is where you're supposed to be. This is what you're supposed to be doing. You have to do this to let go of all of the box that you've created for yourself. And so I make my coffee, I get in the car. I've got the audio version of Women Who Run with Wolves. And I hit the road. The CD starts talking about women's circles and red tents. And I thought, oh, she's talking right to me. This is perfect. And everything was fine until I reached the city limits of Calgary. I haven't really gone back to Calgary since my sister left in '06, I think it was. Um, I had lived there for 12 years, and my mother passed there in '04, and I had moved away, and I hadn't really dealt with any of the things. I just packed up and I moved away. And so I'm driving into the city, and my legs go numb, and my arms go numb, and I'm going, okay, I can do this. This is okay. But then with each breath I take in, I'm starting to lose a bit of consciousness. And I'm like, oh shit, I better pull over. So I pull over under probably the noisiest overpass I've ever pulled over in my whole life. My van was shaking with each car that went by. But I got out, walked over two dead birds to find some grass. I took off my shoes and I was just earthing there, trying to ground myself. I was kind of bouncing to regain feeling in my arms and legs. I tried to phone my husband. He didn't answer, and so I phoned my sister, and then I'm like, I have to phone the only person I know who's going to this festival. And I've never cried to this person in my whole life. We're just kind of, I mean, now we're good friends in my books, but so I phone him up and I'm crying and he's like, "Whoa, are you okay?" And he kind of talked me through it and standing on the earth, and I'm like, "Okay, I got this. I'll see you in an hour. I'm not that far away." And so I stood there until I could feel my arms, feel my legs, and felt fully in my body again. And then I walked back to my van over the two dead birds, hopped in, and um, okay, I'm trying to edit the story in my head. Then I went pee in my van and dumped it out the window and went on the road. So that happened. And so then I'm driving along and I'm doing good. I can see the clouds have kind of gotten stormy and it looks like it's kind of pointed towards the Deerfoot, which, I mean, that's where I learned how to drive. That's where I spent like a good portion of my childhood and young adulthood driving up and down those roads, going places and stuff. And I knew just looking at it that I had to drive through the center of my psyche and the center of my soul and the center of my heart to get where I was going. And I knew that this was going to be a transformational trip when I took it, but I had no idea what I was in for. And so I drove up the Deerfoot, and then I took 16th across, and I was doing pretty good until like I drove past the old pub I used to work at. I was just like going down memory lane, picking up pieces of my inner child that I had left there. And I got to about Sate, and again, I couldn't feel my legs, I couldn't feel my arms, and every breath I'm taking in, I'm losing consciousness. I'm like, oh, shit. So I pull over at a gas station, and this time I phone another friend I have never ugly cried to, and she answered the phone, and she does EFT and tapping uh, and all sorts of fabulous energy work. So I phoned her up and I was really upset and I could feel it. She asked me where I could feel it. And I said, it's in my heart. Like my heart is just hurting. And so she talked me through it until I was feeling a little more grounded. Again, I had my feet off and I was just sitting there trying to ground myself. I finished up on the phone with her saying I'm going to have a snack and then I'll get back on the road when I feel steady. So I was eating an orange and a car pulls in beside me with a license plate 111. And I was like, oh, thank you. Thank you for that little message. I know this is all happening because it's supposed to be happening, and okay. And it's raining a little bit and the storm clouds are running in. I also don't really like storms, but that's okay. And so then I'm eating my nuts and a van pulls in between me and the 111 car. And it's got all the cycles of the moon painted down the side of the van. And now I'm like, oh, thank you. My entire business is based on the cycles of the moon, like as if there wasn't a better sign for me. And so now I'm creepy staring at this couple who's, I don't know, unloading their van or doing something. And I'm just like, and there's tears running down my face, but this time they're tears of like support and love and like good tears, but creepy stare. I know it. So I sat there for a little bit longer, journaled a little bit, made sure I went for a walk so I was completely grounded, could feel all my extremities, and I was like, I got this. So I got back on the road. I had to drive. The next leg of my journey was driving past the road my mother used to live on. And I did that surprisingly well. I think it was the help of the last phone call. Um, and I shit you not, 2 blocks past her house, I am spontaneously singing The Other Side of the Mountain. The other side of the mountain, the other side of the mountain. And I'm like, where did that even come from? But like my heart's lighter, everything's a little bit lighter, and I'm like, I can breathe. And I literally feel like I'm on the other side of the mountain from where I was when I started. Then I hit Cochrane, and I am spontaneously singing Total Eclipse of the Heart. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, is this actually happening to me? And who is ever even going to believe it when I try and say it out loud? But I didn't care about that part because the release and relief in my heart was amazing. Like, I literally weighed myself when I got home because I thought, like, the weight of all that shit I've been carrying for the last, like, 12 years or so would show up on the scale. For the record, it didn't, but my brain is lighter and my body is lighter. And I just feel better in my soul. But it didn't stop there. Like the whole weekend was laid out for my own personal growth and development. The first friend I had called that was going to the festival was the first person I saw, and he greeted me with a big hug and helped ground me in that moment. My friends from Calgary showed up. In the red tent, a woman was sharing about she had had a really shitty time And she was really emotional, and she said something about two dead birds, and I was like, oh my God, I know I'm supposed to be listening to you and honoring you, but oh my God, what do two dead birds mean? I just stepped over two dead birds twice, like, holy shit. So I waited the respectable amount of time, and then I said, what do two dead birds mean? Like, uh-oh. And she's like, well, I looked it up and it means like the letting go of old things and new beginnings, and and I was like, oh my goodness. And um, what else happened? Um, there was a single mother who attended the festival with her two children, and her baby was 4 months old. And I am so grateful she was there, because there's a lot of things I haven't done as a mother because it would be so exhausting to do it. And she did it. And I said, like, oh, are you a single mom? She's like, yeah, I was just feeling really isolated. And it was like she grabbed the strings of my heart and twing, I was just like, oh my goodness, like that was me. That is me some days. And I took her yoga class the next day, and it was amazing. I met one of my guides, and I had previously seen her in meditations and wasn't quite sure who she was or where she fit. She would just kind of come and go, and I just knew her name. And then she came up in this yoga class, and she's my inner healer. And I watched her go around, and I could feel on my body where she was working on in each given moment. And it was hugely powerful and so clarifying. And I remember my mantra for that yoga class was I no, I parent with patience and love. And it was just probably the most profound yoga class I've ever taken in my life. Um, and then I didn't end up taking, there was other workshops I had planned to take, but I just knew that I had to like sit with that feeling and honor that. And so I just went out to the river and and tried to process some of those emotions. And then for closing circle, there was a storm coming in, and I was already starting to get a little panicky about the drive home. Because if anybody has panic, they know how panic works, and eventually you just start panicking about panicking. But the storm was rolling in, and the feelings are coming up, and I'm like, okay, like I need to get out of this circle right now and just do what needs to be done. So I went and I laid in the red tent, and I processed these emotions, and I shed some tears, and then I got up and I danced in the rain of the storm that I was trying to convince myself I wasn't afraid of. And in that moment, I was dancing in the rain with one of the girls I was with. And then across from us was another girl, and she was just singing in the rain. And we both kind of just turned and gravitated towards her. And then we're all standing in the rain. And it was the most organic unfoldment of like amazingness and just like following your soul. I feel like my whole weekend was that. And so that happened, and it was amazing. And then we did some healing in the tent, and um, there was some Reiki going on, some reflexology, just a lot of sharing and like giving and nurturing and loving, and soul food is what it was. Um, and then, we realized the time, and we're doing dinner and we're packing, because I also don't like to drive at night. And I recognize all the boxes I built for myself to keep me safe. And so we ate dinner, we packed, we got delayed. There was a perfectly timed crisis that delayed us a little bit more. So I didn't even leave Cochrane until 7 o'clock. And the skies had kind of cleared where I was, but I knew it was still storming off in the distance. Whatever, I said my goodbyes and I hit the road, and even hitting the road, I was aware of my heart, but it didn't feel anything like it did on the way to Cochrane. So I'm driving up out of the festival grounds, and the one girl had been with, we met at the top of the lights, and that felt really good. And then so I take my left, she takes her right, and I just started talking. Like, I didn't turn on the radio, I didn't try and quiet my subconscious at all. I just let it flow. And somewhere along the road, I think it was closer to Calgary, it started raining, and I don't like driving in the rain. And so I'm like, oh, what do I do? My hand was like hovering over the wiper, but I know when I do the wiper, then I get like that smear, and then I'm like trying to see, and I'm like hovering over the wiper, and I'm like, what do I do? And I said out loud, let it be and you will see. And I swear to you, the raindrops were just like blowing out of the center of my vision. And I was just like, okay, thank you. And then as I passed my mother's road, there's a rainbow on my right side. Um, there was always just enough rain that I was conquering my fear without pushing me past anything. Um, and like I said, as I'm driving, I'm just talking, and there's so many answers just coming out of my mouth that I was literally blown away. I believe in signs, I believe in spirit, I believe in all of these things, but the rate at which I was being supported and recognizing it in that moment, I was blown away. Um, I came to learn on that trip that 6 is the number of my heart. Um, and the amount of sixes, like at one point on the Deerfoot, there were 6 sixes, 4 on one license plate, 2 on the other. And I just thought, wow, like, thank you. Um, I asked that my way be lit because I knew I had left a little too late to have um, daylight left. And the universe used lightning, which storm, lightning, scared, fear. But it was always far enough away that it was beautiful, not scary, and I just felt supported by it. Um, I pulled over in Nanton because I just wanted to look at the sky, and I don't pull over on road trips. I'm very um, goal oriented, and I get in the car, and that's why I travel with a potty, because I generally don't stop and get out anywhere. I just go until I get where I'm supposed to be. And I stopped in Nanton just to look at the clouds and ground myself. Yes, I might be in the car again. But that's because there wasn't a bathroom where I stopped, and it was beautiful, and I didn't want to stop in a dirty gas station. But and I honored the 4 directions, and I just sent out gratitude for the amazing support that I felt during this trip. And got back on the road, light rain, losing daylight, but the lightning was just perfect. At the end of my trip, I had a flash of all of it, and it just kind of tied it all in together for me, to the point where I had to pull over because I was moved to happy tears. I was already back in Lethbridge, and I felt like, yeah, the tension from my shoulders was gone. I didn't have like this death grip on the steering wheel that I didn't even recognize I generally drive with, and just this freedom and this letting go and this release, and I was literally moved to tears. And I pulled into my driveway at 10:17, and that's the very first number I ever recognized that I was being shown repeatedly in my adult life, and I actually Googled that one, and that was my first connection to angel numbers, and I just felt like it all tied in together, and I felt that I had come full circle by the time I pulled into my driveway, and it was amazing. And yeah, I just wanted to share with you all the signs and all the ways, and if you're open to it, they're everywhere, in everything, and half the time they come out of my mouth, and I know now better than I ever did that Spirit uses me to talk to me, and I feel honored, and I feel like, I'm not going to say healed, because I know there's still more to the process, but more, I just feel amazing, and I'm proud of myself, and I'm so grateful to be in the place where I have all these people that I can call, and I know that the universe is there, and I'm just grateful. So thanks for listening to my really long story.